This is the updated Toyota C-HR, and here on Autogefühl, with Jonas behind the camera and Thomas in front of the camera, we're going to take a detailed look of this recent facelift, which did change some exterior stuff, also new interior features, and also new hybrid and updated engines, which will be very interesting because we go in detail, I can promise to you. Actually, the Toyota developer told me they invested 50 million euros in this update of the car. What have they done with that money? Let's find out together in exterior, interior, and the driving experience here on Autogefühl in Full HD, full screen, and full length. Let's go! Yes, a facelift also means changes on the exterior, as it is called. And by the way, please subscribe if you haven't done so far. And thanks again for all long-term subscribers. Here, what have they done? So they made the styling a little bit more bold in the front. That means here the lower grille is a little bit wider. Then the fog lamps, they went to the outside here. And also you can get either this contrasting spoiler lip or it comes in vehicle color depending on the trim. Then also the headlamps changed a little bit from the signature. LED is standard, both front and rear actually. And you can see this is the daytime running light in the top part, then the main LED unit right there. And this one here, the daytime running light, changes to the turning indicator. So this is basically one unit, so also quite interesting. It looks a little bit fresher, a little bit stronger than before. By the way, this color, which we on Autogefühl call Thomas Blue when it's a strong blue tone, Toyota calls it Nebula Blue. 4.39 m, 14'4" or 173 inches is the length of the Toyota C-HR. So small or compact, depending on the definition, crossover or small SUV, again, also depending on your definition. And it has a really, screaming out side profile. That's also why people buy it. So 43% of all customers buy it because of the design. You can also get a dual tone roof as this one here in black, but now available since the facelift is also that you can get a metal gray contrasting roof color that might also fit here to the blue, or Nebula Blue exterior color. Very interesting. And here, of course, the most spectacular falling roof line. Yeah, this will limit the trunk, of course, also with this huge wing right here, but that's also what makes the design screaming out. Here, integrated handles for the rear doors. We, of course, go in depth on the interior very soon. Then you either get 16-inch wheels, aluminum or those ones optional, the 18-inch, then also included in higher trim levels. This trim level here would be style selection, as it's called in Germany, but there are different names for this trim also depending on the market. And the hybrid logo, if you have the hybrid, soon more to the engines because really interesting updates have been happening there. What do you think actually about the side profile here? And let me already tell you something about suspension. There's one base suspension, so you cannot pick any different or adaptive suspension, but they have massively upgraded the suspension for this facelift here for all models. But the 2-liter hybrid gets the most elaborate hardware update as for suspension, and we'll go also in detail later on when we drive the car and also tell you more about that. So, I'm always totally honest with you guys, and I really have to say, when I saw the C-HR for the very, very first time, I would think like, what the hell is this? But I always have to say, sometimes those cars grow a little bit on you, and now, meanwhile, I rather think, yeah, it's definitely still special, but I also like it when cars are not boring, But definitely this is splitting opinions quite a lot. What do you think? Here now in the facelift, what have they done? There's a new black element here on the top part, this, second wing, so to say, that goes all the way from right to left or from left to right over the vehicle. And also new signature here for the tail lamps. They also come with LED technology. And they also feature a cascading indicator light, also quite interesting. In the lower part, this part is also a little bit bolder, like in the front. And then there are those new chrome elements, at least for the 2-liter hybrid versions. It has some kind of fake exhaust form, let's say, but I wouldn't exactly say it's a real fake exhaust. But I mean, at least they don't put a real or fake exhaust here. The real one is underneath. Yeah, so slight changes here also for the facelift in the rear. Still, the best thing about this car, definitely the color for today. What's your take? As for engines, you start with a 1.2-liter petrol turbo engine with about 120 horsepower and just about 11 seconds to 1 kilometers or 62 miles an hour in the acceleration. Then you have the 1.8-liter hybrid, made to a naturally aspirated engine, also around 120 horsepower and also somewhat the same acceleration figure. That one also has an update. And then there's the new 2-liter hybrid, which you see here with about 180 horsepower. And this one is 3 seconds faster in the acceleration, so around 8 seconds is the acceleration figure right there. So that's definitely a massive power output difference. So, and what's also interesting about the battery technologies. First of all, this car is mainly bought as hybrid. So yes, there's the turbo entry engine, but mainly bought here with this combination naturally aspirated petrol engine together with the hybrid system. Inbuilt hybrid system at Toyota. And it's not about the pure electric range, because the batteries themselves, they have about 1 to 2 kilowatt hours of capacity, and that's not much. It's more of using this buffer, so not the longest range, but most electric moments possible when using it as a buffer. Recuperation then again, you start rolling, you are in electric mode, or maybe get off the gas, then you're in the Evie mode once again. So this hybrid system indeed works quite well. No matter if you go for the bigger hybrid here or the smaller one, we always had so far about 5.5 liters on 100 kilometers as for the fuel consumption. And that's about always more than 40 mpg US and even more than 50 mpg UK. So it's actually pretty decent. So, an interesting is, battery technology wise, the 1.8 liter hybrid now gets a new lithium ion battery. That's a little bit more responsive and the newer technology. And also it is lighter because this car got a little bit heavier. It has more base trim, more functions, safety systems, and also higher trim. Then they want to save some weight, especially with the smaller engines. Whereas the bigger engine has more power, and then they said, yeah, it's not too bad if there's a little bit more weight. And this one here still gets the nickel metal hydride battery. It's a different battery technology. Usually the lithium ion is the more powerful, lighter, and so on, more elaborated one. But it also has a corporate reason. They went for both technologies because they developed both technologies, and so they also want to use them. It's more like a utilizing reason, because spending so much money on development and so on, and also about the resources. You need different resources for both batteries, and so they want to, share that a little bit. Very interesting. I would have expected that this one here also gets the updated new lithium-ion battery, but Toyota at least says that fuel economy-wise, it doesn't make such a big difference. It's just that the lithium-ion battery shall be a little bit more responsive from the get-go. However, this one in here in the bigger engine, as this one has a bigger horsepower output anyway, will of course still be more powerful. That's also what the figures show. But definitely a very interesting insight, I think, into this decision-making inside the corporations and which exact parts to pick. This is the car key. By the way, C-HR stands for Coupe High Rider. Yeah, some naming guys played in the kindergarten there, I guess. So, yeah, but you also have a keyless entry. You can put your thumb there. At the moment, the car is complaining because the ignition is on. Then you can also open it again and hear the door closing sound. That sounds a little bit weird. So, yeah, obviously didn't pay attention to the door closing sound. But what they paid attention to is now more soft touch materials. For example, also soft touch at the inside of the doors. That's new. This one, we've seen it so far, but I think it's really cool here in this trim. It's a hard material, but it's structured, and also then with blue accentuations right there. So it looks really cool, feels cool. Then the leather red right there. So really upgrade the materials. Slim door pocket, not so well to use. Then the rest of the interior is also very interesting here with those blue decor elements right there. And then a blue or purple leather red. So it's also cool. So really good materials they put right there. Steering wheel can be controlled up and down and also in reach. I'll show that to you very soon. Infotainment system upgrade, soon more to that. Then as for the seats, you start with a fabric seat as base if you want to go for the lower spec, but they are also just fine. This one would be an upgrade then here with Alcantara on the inside. On the outer parts, I did not get the exact information yet, but some should be leatherette, some should be real animals. So at least the main thing is Alcantara. But as I said, the pure fabric seats will also do just fine. So what about the comfort? Well, I take a seat right here, and you don't sit too high, so you don't exactly get a true SUV feeling. But it's also not the same feeling as in a normal passenger vehicle in a compact hatch or something. So you sit a little bit higher, just a little bit, so more than crossover I like. But the seating position is actually quite comfortable. So those quite sporty looking seats, they offer you a very decent comfort. I like that. And even if you put the seats in the lowest position here with the electric support, with 1.86 m or 6'1", I still get some decent headroom. I'm really feeling quite cozy here in this vehicle. Manual setup then here for the steering wheel, up and down, and also in reach. And that's easily done right there. And yeah, this front whole cockpit, this comes really far towards you. You have to get used to that. But so, also, with the blue accentuations right there, everything looks a little bit spaceship-alike, so to say. And again, due to those upgraded materials, it here and there already got some kind of premium feel. Then again, price is higher than before, but there's no true naked base trim anymore, so it's still somewhat a fair price, I think. By the way, here we also have the optional Jbl Sound System, so we can also soon test a little bit of that sound. By the way, I turned off the ignition now, and so I can also better show you the keyless entry function. So when you even in proximity it's already enough, and then the side mirrors actually flip in, and look at that, how well they're aligned with the car now. So they're really protected, so that's pretty cool. And then when you get closer with your hand again, like here the inside, then it opens again, the side mirrors flip over. But it was really interesting that I didn't even have to touch it. Like, huh? Now I had, but the first one was spooky, wasn't it? Now the interior overview. What's definitely standing out is this infotainment system. And yeah, it's really very interesting. It really stands out. But that's also, you can better control it than wire touch, although it still has a lot of buttons right here. And yeah, that's the biggest news here in the interior. Finally, the Apple CarPlay or Android Auto support also for the European Toyota cars now being upgraded in all the new models or facelift upgrades and so on when they come. So that's definitely really good. And you see they also use most of the space they have right here. And let's just test the audio system here, the JBL. And yeah, it's actually definitely better than the base sound system. Actually quite nice. It's not that I would say like, oh, best ever, but actually quite decent also from the clarity of the sound. So that's nice. And well, this is how you should use this system with the CarPlay or the Android Auto, because the rest of the software, looking here at the normal GPS, yeah, it looks quite outdated still, and see the responsiveness is also not given. Also the route guidance was not the best as we thought. So the rest of the system here is really not that well to handle. So yeah, let's go for the Apple CarPlay Android Auto and leave it like this. So if we take a little bit broader perspective again, we see a lot of floating lines, and the interior really comes towards us. So yeah, it's quite, sensual and extravagant. So nothing boring, definitely. Is it maybe a little bit too much? Please tell me. And then we can see that we have the climate unit here. You can still control it very well while driving. Also looks good as for the visualization in there. There's seat heating available also for both seats. There's even heated steering wheel available, by the way. So the steering wheel itself, so that function is left next to the steering wheel in the lower area. But other than that, yeah, it looks a little bit overloaded here. The steering wheel doesn't look too much, too premium. Also here with those, glossy black inlets. Not sure how they look like over time, but it still does the job definitely. And the adaptive cruise control is set here at the lower part. And interesting is that adaptive cruise control is standard equipment. Also the autonomous emergency brake, standard equipment. So they have really good assistance systems from the get-go. And here in the middle part then here with the instruments, they have actually, maybe I get a little bit lower with the steering wheel. So like this, and on the right side you have the normal speedometer. Middle part you have the digital view for your music, for example, or also for digital speed and so on. Traffic sign recognition also standard. And on the left side you then have this meter where you see when you're recuperating or when you're in the less fuel consuming mode, and then when you really boost up the power. So what else is there? We have, of course, a lower middle console left, and that is where we have the normal USB support. But then, where you put your phone, they rather thought about that when there's no cable. So, yeah, that's a problem a little bit, because, I'm not sure if that might be falling out at some point. You can also put it in the lower part, but even there. So the phone storage is not the best they found there. There's a big cup holder in the front. And then there's this automatic shifting lever. They use planetary gearboxes, by the way. So they listen, when you listen to them, it's the same way as for a CVT gearbox, like this, when you just accelerate. Then there's a electric handbrake. Then there's an Evie Mode button. What's that for? Well, the maximum range is about 2 kilometers pure electric when the battery is fully charged. But again, it's not about it really. But you still would use this button when you're, for example, parking in and out and maybe in your basement garage and really want to be sure that it's in the Evie mode. And then there's another very deep cup holder right there. And last but not least, this armrest cover, which also has a nice soft touch, also with a different tone. Here you can wobble it around just a little bit, but underneath you have some decent storage. Oh, and by the way, we do have a fire extinguisher in this car. It's not because it would be especially dangerous from the battery system or so. Yeah, Belgian fans here will know why, because that's actually Belgian law, and those cars here are registered to the Toyota European headquarters in Belgium, in Brussels. That's also why it needs to have this one here in that. So now those integrated rear handles, and the first things I thought of those was in the Alpha 147. Holger used to drive that one. So then here we go, and the insert, then this is all hardback. There's no change than before, but here again we got this interesting structure, and you see how how small the whole window is. That's of course blocking the view, especially of the rear passengers. Yeah, I think we have to live with that. And then you have some interesting cup holders here at the inside of the doors. In this case, for this trim, you also have those Alcantara seats on the rear passenger side, so also beautiful job. Isofix at the outer seats each, but there's also a middle seat available. I will also test seat this one now, and yeah, it looks a little bit cramped, but how cramped is it really? Of course, no changes here in the facelift, and I can't sit here as a tall adult as I would be driving. Yeah, I touched the front seat. It does exactly fit. Also, headroom-wise, it does exactly fit. No more, no less, so to say. So, that's not the most unique feature about this car, but it still works somehow with 4 adults. As for the middle seat, it's it's not too hard, and I can sit here. But when 2 big people are next to me, or even 3 of my size next to each other, yeah, that would get a little bit close. So, you can still use it. That's okay, but nothing plentiful. Then you flip the seat already from here. Of course, we'll take a detailed look from trunk. There's no middle armrest here whatsoever. I think we can definitely live with that. So it looks even more cramped from the outside than it actually is on the inside. So I think we can still be satisfied. now to the luggage compartment, and yeah, it's a really interesting hatch, definitely, and it's also quite heavy to close it again, but of course still okay. Here on the inside you can also grab it, that you don't, make your hands dirty when it's like really dirty on the outside. Then I would probably recommend to remove this cover. Yeah, I mean, it's still useful for sound dampening while driving, but of course if you need to transport some more luggage, can make sense to put it out. This one here, about 380 liters of capacity in the normal versions, 1.2 and 1.8. Here in the bigger hybrid, just 360 liters, so you lose a little bit. And then this lower part here, you have some more storage that can be used quite well too. And then here they store the normal car battery. You also need that with a hybrid. Even with electric vehicles, you often need the normal car battery, for example, just to start up the car. So here we go. And then just to show you, when I put a backpack in here, yeah, that gets closed. The trunk still does close somehow, but yeah, so that still works. But you see it gets really, really close to this top cover right there. And as for the measurements, we have in length about 77 centimeters. In width, here in the front, is a little bit more than a meter. And then it gets less than a meter if we continue on a little bit further. And the height right here to below the cover is just 35 centimeters. That's of course very, very close. And the overall total height would be, rather something like, about 60 centimeters if you put that one out. But you see all this area here is really, really flat. So the height is the main problem, definitely, as for the trunk capacity. And if we flip a little bit off those seats, let's go with that one. And I also can do it on the other side. So you can see we leave the seats as we would be driving as rather tall people. Here we go. So it's a 2/3, 1/3 split. Then the maximum length we have available here. So that's 1.58 meters. So yeah, so the trunk height is definitely the limiting factor. That's what you pay for with the, more screaming out design. Welcome to Thomas's Driving Lounge with the Toyota C-HR in this facelift. And the cool thing about the inbuilt hybrid is you start in EV mode, but as soon as you accelerate a little bit more, there's the combustion engine hopping on, and it depends on the status of the battery. If it's a little bit fuller, then it's a little bit longer EV and so on. And it constantly changes, and you usually stay in this hybrid driving mode. As I said earlier, when you have enough capacity available, you can click this EV mode. At the moment unavailable, but if there's more capacity at the moment available, sorry, not the capacity, like more power in the battery available at the moment, then you can also use this EV mode a little bit longer if you want to induce that especially. Here on Estrada do Guincho, near Cascais, Portugal, such a beautiful area, such a beautiful beach, and always love to be here for car presentations. So there are actually three major things they upgraded here with the facelift of the Toyota C-HR. And that basically counts for all models available. But I will also go into the specifics of the 2-liter hybrid engine very soon. So first thing is they worked on the noise insulation. And also less vibrations from the engines, better dampening and so on. And indeed, it's more silent here in this interior. It really feels refined and yeah, some kind of premium feel, definitely. It resonates. Wow, what a beautiful view always, but take care of the cyclists first and then of the view. So it really resonates with the upgraded materials and so on. So noise insulation upgrade, that's the first thing. And we also drove a longer route on the motorway yesterday evening. And yeah, I mean, at 120 kilometers an hour, there were some wind noise from the A-pillar, because that sounds really, quite far away, maybe from the side mirror, but that was quite normal. Overall, it was also on the motorway very relaxing with this car, especially about 100 kilometers, 60 miles an hour. That was really perfect. Then the second thing is they upgraded the steering feeling. So before it was quite numb, and here it's still light, but it has more connection to the road, so it feels more natural. So they really worked on that, and that's, you know, maybe it's just a small change, but it so much contributes to the driving fun. You know, there's no real dead area of this steering wheel in the angle, and you just have a natural steering feeling, and that's what I really love when cars have that. Especially nowadays with all those assistance systems. Some cars tend to have artificial feeling steering wheels or steering feelings, and that's not the case here. So that's a great update, definitely. And third major upgrade is the suspension. So before it was somewhat okay, but even it felt a little bit rough at times. You rather thought, oh, it's a very sporty suspension, but it was not that comfortable in situations where you had some bumps on the road and so on. Now, really great update, more comfort than before. That again also counts for all the models, but the 2-liter hybrid gets the most extensive care about the new suspension. So a little bit different hardware here even for this suspension. And I talked to the engineer earlier, and he has already driven the updated 1.8 suspension as well, so for the 1.8 hybrid. And he said, yes, also better, but this one here maybe even a little notch better. Here now, acceleration. Yeah, it's really hard with this car. I mean, the acceleration is 3 seconds faster than before from standstill to 100, but still, it's not a super fast car. You have to be aware of that. But just, you know, to conclude, so those 3 major changes I just mentioned, really significant for the car, and those together, better steering feel, less noise, and better suspension, really account for a more elaborate feeling in this vehicle. So that's really cool. So hardly that we see that we have some facelifts and there are so many significant changes you can feel by driving. Most often, yeah, they change headlamps and that's it, and the driving is exactly the same, but here really a significant change and positive change in driving you feel. Now what about this higher displacement? Again, you say there's no replacement for displacement, or in Germany we say Hubraum ist durch nichts zu ersetzen. Yeah, that's the German lesson for today. And the thing is also that with higher displacement, it doesn't mean it's less eco-friendly or something. So those downsized engines are often just for, you know, less fuel consumption on paper, but not for real, you know. So that can be a problem at times. And also with BMW X5 PHEV, went from 2-liter to 3-liter, up actually higher displacement and the same efficiency. Very interesting. So, however, here with the bigger displacement, also 60 horsepower more, you feel also a little bit more elaborate and refined. So the engine is not that stressed. You don't have to push it that hard that often. And that's really cool, you know, that makes the drive a little bit more refined and calm, especially if you keep it here low in the RPMs. And that's also where this hybrid system is actually primarily aiming at. So it's still not a racing car, and with those planetary gearboxes, when you keep them at lower speeds, they have like the very smooth transitions. Everything is really cool and calm, collected. That's also what makes a lot of fun. Then you have those EV driving moments when you leave the throttle, or when you recuperate, when you brake, and so on. That really fits together. Just when you hammer it really hard, then you again have this effect that the RPMs go screamingly high and so on. And yeah, that's not a pleasant thing to hear, definitely. And I will also induce it as soon as I can overtake this Sprinter, who's probably going also to Carburetor Rocker. Yeah, but still, I mean, it's good to have a little bit more power under the hood. Really looking forward for a later test also with the new 1.8, with the updated one. We have tested that one earlier, but then with the old battery. So there's now, you know, this new battery, and now we can, I think, overtake. Yeah, let's see. So there you heard it, and that was about like 55 to 90 kilometers. I had to reduce the speed right now again because there was a new speed limit. So you see, that would have been a bigger problem with the smaller hybrid engine. So that was better here now, and here now in those corners. Really good steering feel again. So the suspension is definitely less rough than before, and the car is so much more comfortable. But yet again, I wouldn't say it feels less sporty. So it just feels more refined, and just because it's rough doesn't mean it's sporty, you know. It's not a sports car. It has this very aggressive look, yes, but the main purpose is rather to, you know, deliver you this very calm and cool hybrid driving feeling. And again, great fuel economy with 5.5 liters or more kilometers for both hybrid engines. So you see, it doesn't make any big difference if you go for the smaller or the bigger one as for the efficiency. And so 43 mpg US and 51 mpg UK, so really decent figures. But cool thing also that we had that also with the Toyota Camry, with a way bigger car. I think it was the 2.5 hybrid. So although it's a smaller and lighter vehicle here, they all seem to consume almost the same, those Toyota hybrids, no matter which size they are. This is also like a very interesting finding. So pretty cool what they have done with the upgrade of this vehicle, no doubt about that. Also like they have the digital speedometer there, of course, in line of sight. One downside of the C-HR is always that you have a limited view, especially to the rear and the rear sides. So yeah, that's the design on the exterior, so pretty limited. Therefore, it's even more important. Most of the assistance systems are already included, but then again, the blind spot monitor, where you have then the yellow flashing sign there in the side mirrors, that's really important to have that. So you should go for that option, one of the few options you should tick. Other than that, the base equipment is already quite good with this car, and it's indeed quite relaxing, quite refined. And although it looks a little bit cramped on the outside, it's like, do tall people really sit in there, and can they find a comfortable seating position? Can they even take a longer journey? And to say here with those sporty seats, especially if you have the Alcantara or fabric, the base fabric surface, that also adds so much more to the comfort. If you would have the animal skin option, so leaving all ethical thoughts aside, the whole surface is stiffer and slick, and that also reduces the seating comfort definitely, and you especially feel that when you drive the car for a longer time. It's also very interesting as for that finding. So Jonas is even a little bit taller than me. How are you feeling on those seats?
Quite good.
Yeah? It's quite good?
I like them.
So we have still a long way ahead of us today, but I think at the moment we wouldn't be afraid. And sometimes we have like compact cars where we would say like, 2 more hours in this car, it's cool for short routes, but 2 more hours now. But here, it's actually quite good. So not afraid of anything right here. And by the way, here when I'm going, especially downhill now, Evie Mode is active. And even if I'm on the throttle now, again, just a little bit, then sometimes it goes off, sometimes it goes on, and that's what the car does all the time. It switches all of the time. But then again, some recuperation, when I'm a little bit on the brakes, then it's used as a buffer again, and the combustion engine does not have to be on. That's where the car is saving fuel, definitely. So you can also put the shifting lever to the left and then go to manual gear mode, push it forward to shift up, push it backward to shift down. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. So again, another vehicle where they mix it up, it should be the other way around, like, push to the front, shift down, and push backwards to shift up. That's what they do in rally sports as well, Here they did it the other way around. Why do they offer this option here? Well, mainly when you're going downhill for a long time and want to use the engine brake. However, not that significant for this vehicle, because there's also the recuperative braking used. I see then this charge arrow on the left side. And then when the recuperation is being all used, then also the normal brakes are being applied. You can also have a special gauge, the digital gauge in the middle part, this so-called energy monitor. Then I see when is the battery giving power to the wheels, when it's the combustion engine giving power to the wheels, when it's the combustion engine giving power to the battery, or when there's recuperative braking from the wheels to the battery. And it is constantly changing. And you shouldn't pay too much attention to it while driving, because it can be at times a little bit confusing. So in this case, you should just let the car do what it does, you know. If you, not sure if you've seen the fuel economy here at the moment, just for a very short time. Oh, now they want to go left here probably. Of course, we went uphill now all the way. This of course boosts the fuel consumption. Now we soon go downhill again, and then this goes back again. And especially there, we can use more recuperative braking for the battery and so on. The fuel economy will be especially good with this vehicle if you are in the city, because then you more have this stop and go situations. This is really helpful then for that. And on the motorway, when you go constant speeds and higher speeds, then the hybrid does not have the big advantage if you compare it also to the normal turbo engine or so. So the hybrid really plays out its advantages inside the city. That you have to know. So the city fuel economy will be way different from the turbo to the hybrids, whereas the motorway fuel economy won't be that different. However, you know that you're also on the motorway, now for example going downhill, all the way Evie Mode, a little bit recharging also. So even on the motorway you have the situations where you leave the throttle, let it roll a little bit, maybe you hit the brake just a little bit, and then you also there have some EV moments, how I call them. That's what we have here at the moment, for example. Now it's off again, and at some point it doesn't make so much sense to talk about it even longer, but it's just interesting that it constantly changes. And I mean, it indeed works. The fuel economy figures do suggest that, and so our average fuel economy figure I stated earlier was indeed with high motorway percentage, which we did yesterday already, and that also speaks for the system that it still works somehow on the motorway. But of course you have to look at the total mix then overall. So definitely pretty cool what they did with this car, with this facelift. Quite significant as for the upgrade, as for the changes. Especially, my favorite is this new suspension upgrade. Looking forward to a test later on how good they did it in the production process for the 1.8 hybrid, and then also with the lithium-ion battery. So if you are interested in seeing that review also at the later stage, if we should order this car with the 1.8 and with lithium-ion battery, and also then with that suspension, how that feels, and put it in the comments. And we also know that more people are interested to see that, so that's definitely also helpful for us. You can always also state in the comments if there's any car you still want to see from us to review, then state it in comments. And of course always use the YouTube search. Just put in Autogefühl Skoda Kamiq, for example, then just Autogefühl and then the brand name and the model name, and usually you will find most of the cars you seek. And if not, then put it in the comments or say last review of a BMW 5 Series about 3 years ago, can you do a new one? They've upgraded the infotainment system and some other changes. Can you do that for a new run? Then just state your wishes right there. That's we're here for you. So that's what we do. Rain has picked you up also. That even on sunny days that can happen here at Cabo de Roca. So that's the most western point of continental Europe, which we have just passed right there. Very beautiful site. If you're here, for a touristic visit, you should definitely go there. Maybe with a rental car or something. And of course, very beautiful roads here too. And you maybe also picked up here on the driving part this new silence in the interior. Really good, really refined. And that again fits to this EV mode. And that's also why most people probably go with the hybrid, because it just fits to the overall character of the vehicle. So very interesting insight here for you today. Hope you enjoyed it very much with the C-HR facelift here for you. And of course, this fits best to the car. We close it with some EV driving moments, and the battery is not too big, so that should be, when I look at this, now we also almost 2/3 of the battery is full, and that goes quite quickly then, when we're going downhill now. And now all the way the combustion engine is off, and that will again bring down our fuel economy to the normal average we had earlier then. So it's always very interesting to drive this car with the hybrid systems. And now, what about some motorway driving and the real, the true, the final acceleration of this vehicle? Let's accelerate onto the motorway, although it's going a little bit downhill, but let's see what this car is capable of. Plop, that's 100 kilometers an hour, or 60 miles an hour, at the end with a little slight help from being downhill. And what's also interesting, wind noise wise, yes, it's really more refined, especially at lower speeds. And bear in mind, when they built this one, you know, for the most car markets, 100 kilometers an hour or 60 miles an hour will be the most significant one. And this is pretty fine. This is absolutely silent, really cool, and difference here in the facelift if you compare it to the, you know, predecessor, when you want to call it that way, especially at lower speeds. And here at 100 kilometers an hour, 60 miles an hour, still, that's pretty cool. Not sure if you picked up the blind spot monitor when the car passed us here now. But the thing is, when I accelerate to 120, and we can also show you that acceleration here from 100 to 120. Plop, that's it. So you see, that is significantly better also than with the 1.8 hybrid, but still not, you know, like really fast stuff. And now at 120 kilometers an hour, yeah, the wind noises pick up quite a bit. I'm not sure if you can also hear that on camera, especially here now, like from this area. Not sure why, and it's obviously not like the main focus they paid in general when building this vehicle to be suitable for really high-speed driving. But you can't deny that, you know. So it's not that you would feel super much annoyed, but it's definitely significant that you have, you know, this difference from 100 to 120 is a big difference in the noise level, definitely. Other than that, the car stays relatively calm also here on the motorway. So when we, for example, you know, do some slalom here now, see the car does not tilt too much. Still, you feel that the suspension is rather set on comfort, but not too unsporty. And definitely, again, this big change that they decreased this roughness of the suspension, which was there before. So again, this one, to me, one of the best features as for the enhancement of this model here now. And also the long-term comfort here on those seats is really good, and with a little bit more higher seating position if you compare it to a normal passenger car, that's also something then good for those motorway journeys. But indeed, if there are two things I could criticize with this car, besides all those really great facelift changes, is one, the infotainment system besides the CarPlay Android Auto, and definitely when you're at the higher speeds, more than 120 kilometers an hour, then I would have expected a little bit less wind noise there as for that. Other than that, we have found, you know, very, very good and positive thoughts about this car in the driving part today here. And now we come to our conclusion of today with the new Toyota C-HR. So indeed, when we talk about facelifts, sometimes there are minor changes, sometimes there are so big changes that you sometimes think, oh, it's an all-new car. I think here it's quite significant. It's not an all-new car, no, but they really have changed a lot. And starting with the exterior, we've seen that it's a little bit more refined, a little bit more bold in the character. I think that fits very well, and of course here, especially in this Thomas blue color. I would really like to see how it looks like with this new grey contrasting roof, this metal grey. That could look even cooler, especially in this Thomas blue color. Nebula blue was the real name for today. On the interior, even more refined materials, so it really has a premium touch meanwhile. So yeah, it's not the cheapest model as well, and they also topped up the price. Yet again, there's more extra equipment, so I think that's quite okay. But you really get more for your money now, I think. Yeah, the infotainment system software, that's still something. I mean, it's, let's be honest, it's rubbish, the software they have on there. But since we now finally also in Europe have the Apple CarPlay and the Android Auto, this is what you're going to be using most of the time. And then the rest of the infotainment system also doesn't matter that much software-wise. You still can get something in this car, yes, but of course the trunk is the big limitation. So we two, Jonas and I today, yeah, we had some struggles to get all our luggage with us. So that's definitely the limit of this vehicle. Then again, it has a compact size, so you get along with it in the city very well. And you can go for this turbo, yes, but then again, the hybrid is what also makes this car standing out. Also, if you think about the competition, you have those electric moments. The new hybrid, the bigger one, is also a little bit more elaborate to drive. Yet again, the 1.8 gets a lithium-ion battery. I would really like to test that one also at the later stage, because it's supposed to be a little bit more spontaneous from the get-go. So really looking forward to do that. The biggest argument to go for the facelift version is, to me, the updated steering, which feels more natural, better to drive. Then, of course, NVH, the better noise insulation engine, also against wind noise. And of course, this upgrade suspension, which counts for all models. But yet again, the 2-liter hybrid gets, hardware-wise, the best new suspension. So all suspensions are better than before, but this one here especially good. That might be, to me, the main reason to go for this 2-liter hybrid then. But overall, I think really good upgrades they found here with this vehicle. So I think one of the best facelift changes we've seen recently. And of course, then quite low in a fuel consumption. If you think about this 5.5 liter, which is, again, everything always way above 40 mpg, no matter if US or UK mpg. That's definitely quite cool. So thank you so much for tuning in today. Please also tune in next time. You can also check the pre-facelifted version if you're more interested in a used C-HR. Then we also have had a little bit different color. And of course, tune into the competitors. Nissan Juke, for example, Volkswagen T-Roc. We will also link those videos in the video description and in the pinned comment. So, and now leave us your comments. I hope you really enjoyed this episode here today from sunny Portugal, and see you next time.